of this city, and we just can't get people. The power structure in Detroit has been allied with the state in this for the most part, and we can't get a fair discussion of these issues.
There's a blackout when it comes to media.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we are seeing a lot of shutoffs in the city, and I think it's going to have major repercussions. As you spoke earlier, back in the 1917s when they were having problems with health, you know, water is like one of the most, it has to be the most viable need besides air. You have on your street, how many people would you say got cut off?
Oh, 11 houses got cut off, and so you're probably talking 35 or 40 people just on my block that were affected
by no water.
By no water.
And so what that does is, I think it challenges the people, because now you have to cook with no water, you have to bathe with no water, you have to get up and go to work prepared without any water. The children have to go to school without any water. It's not only a nuisance when it comes to health, but when it comes to a person's mental state. I think that this city, black people, period, urban people in urban communities, people in rural communities with very low income, they're right now experiencing a major depression problem because of all of the negative things that's going on in society right now. And so when you put that on top of issue after issue after issue after issue, and you can't go to your sink to get a glass of water to quench your thirst, after dealing with all of these issues, it's just a really sad state. What do you say to the politicians? I had a chance to talk to a gentleman by the name of Kevin McNamara. He's running for Wayne County Executive, and basically he says the same thing that everybody else says. Water is needed. We know that. We know that water is needed. But what do you say to the people? Because I'm trying to get the people's attention, because they are the power. I'm trying to wake them up, shake them up. What do you say to the people?
Well, what excuse me, sir. I tell, first of all, I believe first and foremost the people own the city. The water department is the property of the people.
Yes.
And people have to act like they're the owners and throw these people out that are coming in claiming that they're running things. We got to get rid of this governor. We got to take control of our city. We've got to make sure that we're getting our children educated to inherit the city. That that the young kids on this block, I tell them, we need you to study and learn to be the next mayor of the city, or be on city council, or be the governor. And if you really are serious, be the president. You should be preparing yourself, and we should be encouraging that. And part of the education needs to be about what self-determination means, as opposed to being exploited and being put upon like we are right now under the multiple systems that are taking the city down.
Most people think that their vote doesn't count, and before I would argue against that, but after the election of 2013, and we saw that things are created and designed for the benefit of those who are in control. How do you think can you give me some talking points? How can I convince the people that your vote is like protesting? Protesting doesn't matter if it's in a small amount or a small group, but if it's a large, in the hundreds of thousands, your protest matters. If you are voting, and only a couple of people show up, no, your vote doesn't count. But if you are voting in mass numbers and you're letting your voice be heard and you're out here in the street, you can't be denied. So what do you say? What do you say to your neighbors about voting?
Well, I argue that there's multiple tools to exercise your influence, your voice, and give voice. Voting is one of them. Organizing and coming together to express opposition to water shutoffs is another one. There needs to be visible demonstrations and organizing of that sort. But if people people who care about Detroit decide not to vote, then the people who don't care are going to be the ones who control it.
Yes.
Because there are still legal systems in place that make decisions that affect our lives. And if we allow, through our refusal to participate, if we allow the worst elements to rise to the top, then we're going to suffer the consequences. And again, you know, we're responsible for what happens to children that can't vote. We're responsible for causing consequences to people who abuse us. I think, you know, when you have an election where you have some clear choices, you have a candidate who's running for governor who's destroying our education system, is destroying the city, has put it through a phony bankruptcy, and is dismantling everything and taking it apart so that we never have our city assets. And then you contrast that to somebody who says the first day I'm in, the emergency manager are gone. They're gone from the schools, they're gone from the city. This whole thing is a fraud. Which one are you going to vote for? And if some, you know, and if you send the message that you're not going to vote for anybody, then what you're doing is you're letting all those who want to impose themselves on you have a free hand.
Yeah, you're not even making them fight.
Right. Now, you know, there's cases where not everybody, not every election contest is there a big difference, but in some of them there are, and the governor's race is certainly one of them. You know, and I think in addition to that, you've got issues on the ballot like, you know, are we going to have millages for our libraries? That's going to be on in August. If people don't vote for that.
Check this out. How can people vote for that when they probably don't even know what a millage is? The people aren't educated. They're not even educated on a layman's level. They're not educated on a are you smarter than a 5th grade level. We have to be truthfully honest here. We have a thing that's set up by generations. You have no. I take that back. I apologize. The average parent is occupied, busy, self-centered, ill-learned, or this does not exist. You know, you have so many children that are fending for themselves because the parent is running in, changing their clothes, and running right back out. And that exact same parent is not paying attention to the issues that are at hand. And so we don't have any wisdom that's being trickled down where a mother or a father can explain voting to their 18-year-old, you know, and it's not being taught in school. So how do we educate the people? How do we even get their attention to educate them? Right now, they feel like whatever. Mm-hmm. They truly feel like whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, especially when I was growing up, you know, so I'm talking about in the middle 60s, it was a combination of civics in school and what I learned at home in terms of voting. That may be less true now, but I think in 2012 in the November elections we had 80-some% of the people voting.
And you know why?
Because we had a presidential campaign.
Absolutely, and they do a straight ticket. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not doing individual check marks. They don't really know who these people are, what they stand for, and then Detroiters in the Tri-County area period have this name recognition thing going on, and right now we have a couple of people that's coming up that are running a candidacy, and it's a name thing, you know, and it's like they're not out here in the streets communicating with the people. They're not listening to the people, and I think that they're taking advantage of media instead of doing grassroots, concrete political work, you know, campaigning. And so it's kind of hard to expect something from the people when they're getting nothing. They're not getting any information. They're not getting any education when it comes to voting. So I'm just trying to think of some solutions.
Well, there are community groups that do voter education forums all the time, all over the city. That's one thing. When people are experiencing the problem, such as a water shut-off, and they say, what's going wrong with the system that I'm not being, my issues have gotten to the point where I can't get water, or some scandal has come around. But I'll say this, about Detroit voters, that I would rather be under Detroit voters than voters anywhere else. Even if some people argue that they don't participate in the way that we think they should, I would say that. I'll give it some examples. In the entire United States, not Detroit, except for only a couple percent, voted for George Bush in 2000 to be president. Why? Because his father was president.
Yes.
It was name recognition. So Americans, and I forget how many tens of millions, voted based on a combination of standard party affiliation and the fact that he was the son of a former president. Name recognition and intuition, but not intelligence. The man wasn't qualified to be president. He was stupid. He was ignorant. He acted stupidly, and he brought those kinds of people around him. There's states that have elected governors who were totally ignorant. I mean, California elected Arnold Schwarzenegger because he made bad movies.
Yeah.
They elected Ronald Reagan because he made so-so movies.
Yeah.
They elected a guy in Wisconsin as governor because he was one of those fake professional wrestlers.
Yeah.
That was his name recognition. So when I put Detroit in perspective with what people do elsewhere, and Detroiters, I would like to say I'd rather be under their voting than anybody else's.
One last question. As far as the massive water shutoffs, what should we be saying in the streets? What should the people be doing? It's like if it's not happening to them, it's not on their doorstep, then they really don't care. We're trying to put a perspective out there so that they can draw some type of yearn to care. What do you say to your neighbors? Besides lend water, because we have to help each other out. For us to fight these type of injustice ways that are being put down on the people, what do you say to them at this moment?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the water department and city government and the schools, all of them, and all the components, the recreation system, everything, are controlled and owned by the community, not by any politicians. That's who owns them. And they're organized for the common good. And when they're not being used in that manner, and they've been taken over by others, or were being abused as a result of their takeover, then the community has to reclaim its ownership. And they have to do it visibly through demonstrations, through actions, through educating their neighbors, through showing up and speaking out. I'm reminded of the quote attributed to Harriet Tubman. That she said, "I rescued 1,000 slaves, but I could have rescued 1,000 more if they had known they knew they were slaves."
Yes.
And we're kind of in the point where people think that they don't believe that they have the ownership, that they don't have power, that they don't have the dignity of citizenship to fight for what's theirs. And that's what we need. We need that fight for dignity and control.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
I love
sister.
you.
Thank you. I love you too, dear. Thank you so much.
You could